If you've been a follower of my channel for any length of time, you know that I believe very strongly in the concept that data is the new oil. It is what is going to drive our economy in the future. And he who owns the data will own the economy. And you probably then, if you've been with me for a while, you know that I believe very strongly in the big nine, the companies that I believe will lead us into the future because they hold data. It's a book that's written by Amy Webb, and she basically says that IBM, Alibaba, Microsoft, Tencent, Apple, Baidu, Facebook, Amazon, and Google will rule the world because they control the data and they control artificial intelligence. And so these are the companies that are going to change the way we live. And that is who I invest in. But the but is I will not invest in Alibaba, Tencent, and Baidu. Why? Because they're Chinese companies, and I refuse to invest in Chinese companies. And why is that? Well, I think the first reason is there's a guy in Washington, D.C. that wears a hat that says, "Make America Great Again." Now, I didn't know that America wasn't great, but apparently it isn't. And apparently he believes the reason it isn't is because we are being surpassed, we are being taken advantage of, we are being abused by China. And we are being abused by the Chinese companies, and we are being abused by their high-tech companies. So he wants to make America great again. And I don't have any problem with that. But I don't want to get in the middle of the dispute. And that's strictly why I don't buy those three companies. And I will not buy any Chinese company because the guy who's running Washington right now wants to make America great again. Now, if you don't understand why he feels that these three companies and China as a whole is going to surpass us as the world power and change the world order, you need to read this book, AI Superpowers, China, Silicon Valley, and the New World Order. If you've been with me and you know that Peter Zion wrote the book, The Accidental Superpower, which describes the evolution of the world order, the current world order being established at Bretton Woods shortly after World War II, as the Allies met and said, how are we going to make sure that World War III never happens? And that's how the world order was established. That's why we have 11 aircraft carriers, and it's our responsibility to control the seas to allow for free trade. We're pulling back a little from that. And again, that's another story. But the reality is, if you'll read this book, you'll understand that China has a different business philosophy than we do. The major part of their different business philosophy is that if I create something here in the United States, like Facebook, or Apple, and I file patents at the patent office, you're not allowed to violate my patents. You're just not allowed to. That doesn't work in China. China works more on a gladiator mentality. If you invent something and it's good, you better make it better, because if you don't, another gladiator will come in and kill you and replace you. And China encourages that. They encourage their young talented people to put Alibaba, Tencent, and Baidu out of business if they can. And they challenge them to do that. So when they copy Google and Apple and steal their technology, that's okay. That's part of our society. I'm speaking as a Chinese. That's part of our society. And you learn that in this book, and you come to understand that it's a very disruptive place over there. You fight to stay alive every day as a company. You have no protection from the government unless you're in with them and you can help them achieve their goals. But it is a gladiator society. So I won't invest in that because I'm not comfortable with that different type of investing, with that different cultural attitude. I don't know it. I don't understand it. So why would I get involved in it? Now, another reason that has become more apparent is they cook their books. We just have learned about Luckin Coffee, that is basically the Starbucks of China, that was just on a rampage, but it was all phony. Another company, IQIYL, owned by Baidu, one of the big nine, cooked their books and got caught at it. There's a continuing list. And then there's the issue of data. If you're going to then operate in the United States, like TikTok or Huawei, then we don't want you collecting data on the American citizens and transporting it back to China to be turned around and used against us. So that's another reason I don't want to get involved in that. It's kind of a choice of there's better opportunities here that don't come with some of the risk that comes with China. Now, the guy who wears the hat that says, "Let's make America great again," has said that he is potentially going to delist Huawei, Tencent, Baidu, all these Chinese companies that gather data and are listed on our stock exchange until we can have a third-party audit. And that is basically saying, hey, China, we're going to send some of our best accountants who can read Mandarin to come over and audit your books. And that's going to be a requirement for being on the United States Stock Exchange. Well, they want to be on the United States Stock Exchange because it is the biggest stock exchange in the world. So what do I want to own a company that could potentially be delisted on the United States Stock Exchange? If I've got $30,000 in Tencent, and all of a sudden the guy with the red hat says, you're out of here. What happens to my $30,000? I don't know. So why would I want to put that $30,000 at risk when I can feel more comfortable with the big six? So I don't invest in Chinese companies. I won't invest in Chinese companies. Am I throwing rocks at Chinese companies? No, at no way. Because does any company in the United States cook their books? You're probably too young to remember Enron, WorldCom in Adelphia. 3 companies that are no longer around that cooked their books. It happens in the United States. But we have regulations, we have regulators who come in, check their books, and make sure that it's clean. So it comes down to risk and reward. This is how I run my life. If you want me to do something, I look at the risk and the reward. If I used to ride my bike, I have a $3,500 road bike, a Pinarello. Damn good bike. It's one of the Ferraris of the biking world. And I used to probably ride it 4 days a week on the Birmingham streets. But then I came home one day and I told Nita, I said, I know how I'm going to die. And she said, whoa, how are you going to die? I said, I'm going to be hit either by a little lady in a Buick or a teenager in a pickup truck. And I know what my last words are going to be. And she said, oh, and what are those? Oh, shit. As the bike hits me and throws me into the ditch or onto the street. That's how I'm going to die. Well, after a couple of weeks of seeing close to death activity, I decided the risk isn't worth the reward. So now I ride my bike on Sunday mornings at 7 o'clock in downtown Birmingham, where there's no traffic, there's no little ladies in Buicks, and there's very few teenagers in pickup trucks. So that's how I approach the stock market. Risk and reward. And right now, although I think probably Tencent is the most progressive, most dominating company in the world, I won't buy it. I'll keep my Apple, I'll keep my Google, my Amazon, and they'll take me to where I want to go. And I'll just continue to hold them and add to my positions because I got to believe Jeff's going to split that stock. And my shares will go up, and you'll buy in, and away we'll go again. So that's my take on China, and I hope we do make America great again, although I kind of think it's still pretty great, but that's just my opinion.